and welcome to the Onstage Colorado podcast, where the topic is theater in Colorado specifically, and theater in Colorado that's going on now. Later in the episode, we're talking to Helen R. Murray from the Aurora Fox Theater, whose show Miss You Like Hell started Friday. She's joined by two of the actors from the show, Adrienne Lee Robinson and Jeree Henshaw. It's a fun conversation, so stick around for that. Also in this episode, we catch up with John Moore. Many people know John as the senior arts journalist for the Denver Center, but he's also the founder of a super cool nonprofit called the Denver Actors Fund, which helps out theater artists when they've got medical or other urgent needs. The Denver Actors Fund has a big event coming up on September 30th, also at the Aurora Fox, so we'll talk about that as well. But first, let's do some quick previews of some shows that the Onstage Colorado review crew is writing about. In Boulder, the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company opened their season with Tiny Beautiful Things, a show adapted from a book by Cheryl Strayed about her time doing an anonymous advice column. The show stars Diana Dresser as Strayed and also includes Josh Hartwell, Rodney Lizcano, and Simone St. John in the cast portraying letter writers. Our new Boulder reviewer, Amy Drugan, liked the show a lot, writing, "The biggest strength of Tiny Beautiful Things, the way it leaves you feeling perfectly human. For this emotional and captivating foray into the human experience, Tiny Beautiful Things isn't a show to miss." Tiny Beautiful Things plays at the Dairy Arts Center in Boulder through October 12th. At Denver's Curious Theater, I reviewed their season opener, Passover. Playwright Antoinette Nwandu's hard-hitting play about two young black men trying to escape from an urban street corner that sort of represents the constant prison they live in constructed of racism. It's a powerful play that evokes Waiting for Godot as well as the Exodus story and elements of the slave days in America. Strong performances by the two leads, Greg Griffrard and Gregory Fenner, give the show moral heft, while Curious regular Eric Sandvold as the token white guy adds the catalyst that brings the show to its shocking conclusion. It's a thought-provoking show that's as relevant as ever, and I'd highly recommend it. It too runs through October 12th. I haven't written this yet, but I got the rare opportunity yesterday, which would have been September 21st, to see A Doll's House and A Doll's House 2 at the Denver Center. The DCPA Theater Company is running both Ibsen's 1879 original about a woman who suddenly decides her marriage sucks and abruptly leaves her husband, and the new follow-up written by Lucas Hnath that picks up on the story 15 years later. You don't have to see them both or both on the same day, but together they really pack a wallop and make for a fun, full day at the theater. It's a long run, so you've got through November 24th to catch these shows. I'll have that review up on the site in the next day or two, but I'd suggest you get tickets for both dollhouses to get the whole story. And next weekend I'll have the two directors, Chris Coleman and Rose Riordan, on the pod to talk about them. I also got to see the Aurora Fox's opener, the road trip musical Miss You Like Hell. It's also a very strong production, a funny and heart-wrenching show about mothers and daughters and the purgatory that undocumented immigrants in America live through these days. So let's jump to the interview I did with Helen R. Murray, Jeree Henshaw, and Adrienne Lee Robinson. Okay, I am here with the Onstage Colorado podcast. I'm here in the office of Helen R. Murray, the executive producer of the Aurora Fox, who's also the director of Miss You Like Hell, which is the show that's opening their 35th season this fall. So, and also with us are Adrienne Lee Robinson and Jeree Henshaw, who are both actors in the show. So, I want to start off with you, Helen. How did you pick Miss You Like Hell?
Well, hi, Alex. Thanks so much for having us today. The reason I picked Miss You Like Hell is because it's, for one, a fantastic show, and that tends to be the first reason I program anything. Is it really great? Will our audiences have a great, entertaining experience? But I also constantly look toward our community makeup and diversity of storytelling on stage, and so when I saw that the rights were available to Miss You Like Hell, which I'd heard about prior, and I'm a big fan of Kiara's writing as well. At that point, when I saw that it was available, I pretty much snatched it up so nobody else could have it. I love stories that are familial. I love stories about love, and I think this one hits on both of those topics in a big way. And it, of course, addresses something that's highly prevalent right now, even though the show itself was written prior to sort of the headline experience we're going through right now. It was written prior to that, but it's obviously extremely timely as well. So all of those things went into my thoughts behind programming the show.
Right. And when you're talking about things like immigration and
Correct.
Refugees and all of that. So can you tell us real quick kind of what's the plot? And this is a musical.
This is a musical. It's a story about a mother and daughter who are sitting next to me right now. And the mother, who's been somewhat estranged from her daughter, shows back up in her life to go on a road trip across the United States. And what awaits them at the other end, unfortunately, is her mother's deportation hearing. But the show itself is, yes, about... I mean, you ladies can chime in too, but yes, it is about the impending challenges and the greatest fear, I guess, for anyone facing an undocumented status. But it's also very, very much about the mother-daughter relationship and the repairing of, hopefully, what those two are looking for in each other. And so, in fact, there was a moment last night, Jerry, when you were performing. And it was the first time I ever heard about the Prometheus. I listened to Prometheus in a different way last night. Instead of always being torn open, it was about always healing.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that lifted for me in a different way. And I love it when actors get to the point where they lift words and new ideas in different ways. And so that's a pretty apropos idea for the show itself, always healing. I just found that fascinating last night. Anyway.
Okay. So you're both Denver-based Mexican-American actors. So may I ask you, Jerry, you play Beatriz, who's the mother?
Yes.
Okay. And so what's this role mean to you, to play this kind of a person?
Well, I think, for some of the reasons that Helen was just talking about, I mean, this role is meaningful to me because it is all of the things I already am. And I until recently, and specifically, I've been really lucky to get to perform in now a few of Kiara's plays. She as a playwright has afforded me a privilege that I had not had really up until her plays, which is to just slip right in to a role that is a lot of who I am. And of course, as actors, we're also, we also like to stretch, and we also like to imagine entire experiences we've never had. But there is something that is really just compelling as an acting artist about what happens when something just rings like a harmonic, like within you. That is so different than when you've had to kind of create something from the outside in. So, that's what that means to me.
So are some of the experiences of the character pretty relevant to things you've experienced, like you've known people in this situation?
So actually, no, that is actually, I don't have personal experience with the undocumented crisis that can come with that in a life, that can blow that up in a life. Not in my interior experience in my family. Certainly, I know people who've been through that. But I'm talking about just the things that are a part of our fabric. That by shining a light on a Mexican American young woman and her Mexican mom, these themes that come out of that are mother-daughter. I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, but then also just these other cultural touchstones. The importance of song and the importance of these special. Of course, the food. It's like, I don't know. Like, I have yet to make it through a particular moment that we have on stage where I sing just a little it's a little bit of a drone kind of lullaby sort of song. And I was talking with Adrian about it. Like, I don't know. I don't know why it keeps catching me so deeply that I have yet to push and just perform that moment, because I'm experiencing this truly overwhelming sense of this song is being sung from stage. And this part of our culture is being experienced as a performative art that, like, people are going to experience, like, seeing their own childhoods played before them. It's going to hit somebody in a way that they won't expect either, because you've never heard that performed. You've never heard that part of life, like, zeroed in on and given breath, as someone who's watching something as an audience. So it's neat. It's just neat.
So mother-daughter relationship. So Adrian, you are how old is your character in the show?
She's 16.
16. So and are we expecting the usual tension between mom and a 16-year-old daughter?
You can expect more than normal tension between this mother-daughter duo. And it's funny because I grew up being very close to my own mother and truly having her as a best friend. So it's been very interesting to dig into what I think a lot of teenagers feel with their mothers, especially mothers and daughters, I've been told, seem to butt heads a little more than maybe daughters and fathers so much. But yes, there's angst. In a word, yes. Oh, there's angst.
And I'd be amazed to learn that there aren't some comedic elements to that as you guys are going.
There definitely are. I think there's a lot of dialogue in the show that will ping with maybe people who have recently grown out of that angsty teenage stage, or maybe the parents who have heard it 100 times, and all the eye rolls and all the crossed arms. I think they're all going to resonate with a lot of our audience.
Great. Helen, when you think about what's going on in the United States today, and it's just sort of insane, and it's really hard to kind of process. Is this piece, this musical, going to help kind of help people understand a little bit more about what some of these folks are going through?
I think highlighting a narrative told by someone who contends with this in a more urgent manner is a necessity in our cultural landscape. I'm trying to be politic because my wish to produce something like this doesn't come out of a political endeavor.
Right.
But I was talking with Dree and Adrian, and Dree is a mom, and I said, that moment, have you ever had that moment where you couldn't find your kid in the grocery store? And it's a split second, right? We have this tiny moment, but everything in you feels all of a sudden like you're not even in your own universe anymore. It's off kilter. There's part of you missing. Or when your kid's in the hospital, which I've had I've had a couple emergency room moments in my parenthood. Any of those moments where your kid is not okay, or you don't know where your kid is, and we've all had them. Even just watching my kid fall and skin their knee, I feel the wince of pain in myself. Mm-hmm. And so I think any parent watching a separation like that, no matter what your politics, this is not about politics, this is about fact. It is happening right now that we separate kids from parents, that we send parents away to other countries. And I don't think that we look at it as an actual reality. We think of it as such an other. There's an otherness about the entire crisis. And you're right to use the word crisis. And so to not bring any politics in it, because I don't have a solution. I don't have necessarily a judgment call on isolationist practices in the face of large amounts of immigrant populations, which have happened throughout history before. I don't even try to make judgments about that. I just know the reality of the moment is I don't know how, as a parent, to not connect to that level of just insane pain that must be. I can't imagine what all of these parents and children live day to day with this. So yeah, you better believe I have some super strong feelings about what that unlocks in our humanity when we actually face it. And so to be able to tell it through art, to be able to give voice to it on our stage, to have this the level of talent that I have in this show, to be able to tell it so well, because that's the other thing is if you don't tell a story really, really well, people won't hear it. And so thank goodness I have such an incredibly talented cast. But it makes a difference. It sells it. You feel it with them. I have yet to make it through a run of this show without tearing up, and I have worked every minute to the bone. I have teched it, and I have studied it, and I have gone beat by beat, and you would think I would be so bored with it, but it's not true. I watch it, and it still gets me every single time.
All right. Adrian, I'll ask you, what was one of the most challenging things for you as an actor to bring to this role?
Olivia has some major issues that are not main plot points in the play. It's her own personal journey through depression and anxiety. And as somebody who does not, luckily, somebody who does not suffer from those kinds of things, I'm tapping into a very dark place in a couple of spots in the show. She has full-on panic attacks. The first time we rehearsed it, I was so out of control, I almost passed out. I got so lightheaded, good thing that I had you to lean on, because I almost dropped to the floor. And I'm tapping into this dark, terrible place that a lot of people deal with on a, unfortunately, I think daily basis. And that has been a real struggle to disconnect myself from those really, really painful experiences we're going through every night on stage, and being able to step off the stage and go, okay, okay, we did it. I lived a true experience. I hope that, felt real and resonated with the audience, but I have to let it go.
Okay. And Jerry, what about for you?
For me, this show is I feel like a super, super juggling act that I like, I've juggled in the past, and then I was like, sure, I'll juggle in your show, and then it was like, oh my God, these are flaming swords and like different shapes of objects that I'm like, when I think about it, Kiara does that. That's kind of like her specialty. It's like you think you've read it and you think, a play about this, and then as you get into the mechanics of it, those turns and those the contours of the play that you thought it was, it's there are these sharp edges to them, and so yeah, there's it's a beast. I call this show a beast. You sort of have to bow before it. It has really been a humbling experience to just try to grab on and make it to the end.
All right.
I should also say that it's the double-edged in a different way, because it's not just Kiara's work. The music that Aaron has written for this piece, yes. They've been both gifted with like, this is my power ballad more than once. Fourth power ballad. Right. And so they really get to, she's given them so much opportunity. So the music
You're
is...
so right, Helen. It is about the music too, and I am thinking about that when I'm thinking about it, and I think that Aaron writes music that is perfect for that swing that you take,
very much.
And so that all in total, this story is like grab on,
buckle up.
All right, Helen. As we wind down here, I know you have to get off to rehearsal here.
Yes, we do.
Doing a full dress rehearsal, probably.
Yes, we are.
What are you hoping that audiences will leave this theater kind of feeling after this show?
I'm always afraid when people ask me this that I've been repetitive. So if I have been, then I hope people start taking it for granted that this is what we should walk away with when we leave the theater. But I actually think that even though this is a really tough show, and you're right, it's a beast, and there's some dark things in it, that there is still a portion of hope that we take away, and that even if the hope is that you feel that their story might, there's times where I feel their story is hopeless, or just that in general, the issues facing us are so big that they could feel hopeless if we let them. But that when we recognize the story, when we recognize the connective tissue of our humanity in these things, that we actually walk away wanting to be better people in some way.
Yeah.
Even if it's just to one another. Accountability toward one another is something that I talk about a lot. And I think this play so many times over and over again reinforces accountability to one another and to our humanity. And so I hope they don't have to be that, they don't have to have that sort of vocality about it or articulation about it. But if there's something that they walk away with inside that feels like they're his hope for humanity, let me be a part of it. That would certainly be an awesome thing. Also, I just want them to walk away thinking it's an awesome show and telling everybody they know to come see it. That too. Make sure you do that.
Okay. All right. Well, Miss You Like Hell starts September 20th. It runs through October 13th at the Aurora Fox. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk with On Stage Colorado before you go out for one of your last dress rehearsals. Break legs all around, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, that was a lot of fun. You know, most of the interviews I do are done remotely, so it was a treat to go into the theater and talk to these three women about this fascinating show. I was there opening night, and the audience was really into it, rewarding the cast with a standing ovation at the end. Okay, now let's whip around the state and talk about shows that are opening in the next 10 days or so. After that, we'll be back with my interview with John Moore to talk about the upcoming show Miscast, also at the Aurora Fox, which is a fundraiser for the Denver Actors Fund. Okay, shows. In Carbondale, A Walk in the Woods, being done by Thunder River Theater Company, September 27th through October 12th. This is I'm actually going to go up to see this one. My old acting buddy Bob Moore and Wendy Tennis. In Carbondale, it's Walk in the Woods at Thunder River Theater Company, September 27th through October 12th. I'm going to go up and see this one because it stars two of my old acting buddies, Bob Moore and Wendy Tennis. So I'll be back with an article about that. In Boulder, the Catamounts have Everybody at the Dairy Arts Center through October 12th, and our reviewer Amy Drugan will be one of these shows. A very interesting show. In the words of an email sent to me from Sarah McPherson at the Catamounts, has its title character chosen by lottery. Yep, that's right, on stage every single show, and no, she says it's not rigged. In Brighton, Best of Enemies at the Armory Performing Arts Center through September 28th. In Colorado Springs, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime at the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center, September 26th through October 20th, and our Springs reviewer April Took will have a review of that. At the Springs Ensemble Theater, it's By the Bog of Cat, September 26th through October 13th. It's loosely based on Euripides' tragedy Medea, and it's set in Ireland, and it sounds pretty intense. In Cripple Creek, Old Standard, You Can't Take It With You at the Butte Theater through October 6th. And in the Denver metro area, in Aurora, Best Day of Your Life at the Vintage Theater through October 6th, and we'll have a review of that from our reviewer Jane Reuter. Curious Theater Company's doing Passover through October 12th, and as I mentioned, there's a review on the site about that. Aurora Fox Arts Center has Miss You Like Hell through October 13th, which we just heard about. Play On, a musical romp through Shakespeare's Women, is at Champa Studio next to the Denver Center through September 28th. Wild Kratts Live at the Belco Theater, that's in Denver, September 26th, the one for the kids. And at the Bug Theater, the Equinox Theater Company presents Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, September 27th through October 19th. Finally, the ever-interesting Buntport Theater in Denver has Universe 92, September 27th through October 19th. It says, inspired by real scientific experiments, Universe 92 is a comedy featuring 3 animal behaviorists, a giant rat in a hammock, and a Roomba. Sounds great. Fort Collins, Driving Miss Daisy at Bob Blue through October 20th. And we have a new reviewer up in Fort Collins who will check that out for us. Also, the Debut Theater will be at the Lincoln Center with Every Brilliant Thing, September 27th through October 19th. And we'll also have a review on that. In Glenwood Springs, The Other Place is being presented by the Sopris Theater Company at Colorado Mountain College, September 28th through 29th. A mystery unravels during a lecture at a Cape Cod resort as blurred truth and fragmented memories collide. In Grand Junction at the Moss Performing Arts Center, it's First Date through September 28th. In Longmont, I Do at Jester's Dinner Theater, September 29th through October 27th. And in Parker, the big show at the Parker Arts this month is 9 to 5, the musical. It runs September 27th through October 13th. And finally in Windsor, it's Leading Ladies at the Windsor Community Playhouse, September 27th through October 13th. All right. Well, tons of shows going on, and sounds like a great time to get out and see some theater. All right. Now let's listen to my interview with John Moore with the Denver Actors Fund. Okay, we're on the line with John Moore, founder of the Denver Actors Fund. And I know you've got an event coming up on September 30th at the Fox, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. And also just kind of start by telling us what the Denver Actors Fund is and how it came into being.
Well, thanks first for having me, Alex. I appreciate that. I founded the Denver Actors Fund back in 2013 as an opportunity to help Colorado theater artists. As you know, I spent a long time as the theater critic of the Denver Post, and as a reporter of the beat, I came across many dramatic and sad stories of artists who are sort of lost in the healthcare situation in America, where terrible things happen to everybody, but the theater artists tend to be the people who are the most endangered in terms of having insufficient or no insurance whatsoever. So we were in a community where somebody would get a diagnosis, there's something terrible would happen, and somebody would rally and have a benefit of some kind, and then I just kind of had the idea that why don't we raise the money in advance and have it in reserve so that when people need it, it's there for them. And so we started very, very small with a little karaoke night at the Voodoo Comedy Playhouse. And since then, we've built up the fund to the point where now, just about 6 years later, we have distributed $385,000 back to Colorado theater artists.
Wow, that's an amazing figure. And I'm sure it's been a lot of help for a lot of people. So how often do you get requests for help with the fund?
Well, just before you called, I was writing a check. So, they can come sometimes 3 a week. Sometimes, we go a couple weeks without a request. There's no way of really predicting, but I can tell you that in the time that we have been certified to distribute money through the Secretary of State, that we've had about 120 grant recipients. Many of them have ongoing issues. So there have been people who've been recipients for multiple reasons. And we also have this, what I call Army of Angels, about 60 volunteers who, when called upon, will give practical assistance as well. So we're talking anything from transportation to and from medical appointments, or meals if they're recovering from surgery, or when people are really laid up, we'll go in and we'll clean their apartments and really do whatever anybody needs to know that they've got a community supporting them.
So you've got a variety of different ways that you get money for the fund, and sometimes it's theaters donating like the profits from a particular performance. How often does that happen?
Well, we have a program called the Tap Shoe Initiative where we partner with companies to help participate in raising funds for us. But we're some of them are big and some of them are small, but we don't want to rely entirely on the people we're trying to support to be the people who raise our money for us. So we've really diversified in the last couple of years with grants and things like that. With events like Miscast that are coming up, we've made it a priority that every time there's an event that either we're producing or benefiting from, that it have a performative element to it, because we want to make sure we want to make sure that people are having a good time while they're helping us to raise money. So I would say the bulk of our revenue comes from events where people can come to a variety of different kinds of shows to have a good time. It might just be a designated performance of a play that's actually happening, or it can be a special event that we put on ourselves, such as, early on we did a night where it was having fun with the idea that trivia is so popular around town, but if you're a theater nerd, hardly ever do you get a question about theater. So a big part of your knowledge base never gets tapped into. So we had an all trivia theater smackdown night, which was great. We also are surprised. I love opening the mail because sometimes I know people are raising money on our behalf. And then just last week, I got a very surprised letter in the mail from the Denver School of the Arts, where their theater kids, 6th grade through 12, put on a 3K drama dash, and they raised us more than $6,000.
Wow.
So much of what has happened, Alex, has just been so much about community building. we've helped so many people now that I think most people in the theater community have been touched in some way by the aid that the Denver Actors Fund gives. But what's really beautiful is the organic nature of it, is that people give from their hearts in a way that we never could have predicted. And we never know who the next application is going to come from. And it's, sometimes, you would do anything to take away these boating accidents or bicycle accidents or cancer diagnoses, all these things that we've had to deal with. You would do anything to take away that from anybody. But oftentimes the name pops in and it's somebody who's given in the past, or they're a monthly donor themselves, or they have participated in any number one of our fundraisers. And it's really organic that way. And I love that, because what you give into it, eventually you get out of it. Because I mean, let's be honest, it's not a matter of who needs the help next. I mean, we're all going to need help eventually. I just like the idea that this community has a little bit more of a safety net than it had before.
So, John, can you tell me about some of the people that the Denver Actor Fund has helped? Any particular examples?
Well, what's on my mind right now are those wonderful performers who have volunteered to perform for us at Miscast. And it just turns out that several of them have received Denver Actors Fund assistance in the past. And one that comes immediately to mind is Faith Goins-Simmons, who's one of the most powerful voiced entertainers in Colorado. She recently has appeared in things like Porgy and Bess at the Aurora Fox and many other shows. But when she was in that show, Porgy and Bess, something really horrible happened to her family when her 13-month-old son passed away. And it was sudden. It was in the middle of the day. It was a complete mystery to medical officials. But here are these young parents, and she's doing a show, and suddenly she's just to bury her child. And because nobody knew why a healthy 13-month-old could just get sick and die in the middle of the day. They didn't know maybe there was something in the air. Maybe it was radon. Maybe there was something going on. So the police actually made the couple leave the house until they could clear it, until they could figure out the mystery. And so here, not only did they lose their son, they lost their home temporarily. And she was supposed to be performing in a show. And so they moved into a hotel, and the Denver Actors Fund went into action immediately. We helped pay for their hotel for the month that they were displaced, and so that they could focus on their grief and on burying their child, and Faith on doing that show. And those are unspeakable things to happen to anybody. But by having the Denver Actors Fund there in a small way, we could be there and try to give them just the tiniest bit of comfort so that they can put their attention where it really needed to be. And Faith has come back time and time again since then, where she's like, you guys helped me through a really tough time if you ever need me for anything. And we don't want people to ever pay us back what we want them with, but if they can help us with an event like Miscast, people like Faith come back time and again, whatever you need, and she'll be performing. I can't tell you what she's going to be performing because it's always a surprise. It's just something you've never seen before. That's what I can guarantee for all of these acts. But that's a really wonderful example of the spirit of give and take in this community when somebody gets helped, and then they'll come back and they will help out in any way that they can to keep us going. So we really appreciate that of Faith and of dozens of other artists in the community who have helped us in the same way.
Wow, that's a powerful story. So in terms of the upcoming show, Miscast on September 30th, can you tell us a little bit about that?
So Alex, thanks for asking. Miscast is coming up on September 30th at the Aurora Fox. It's actually one of the only things that the Denver Actors Fund produces and presents itself. It's primarily done by Robert Michael Sanders and Kenny Moten as their in-kind donation to the Denver Actors Fund. But what they do is they give actors from around the state come together and a really fun concept where they get to perform songs from musicals that they would never, ever normally be cast in to perform in themselves. So sometimes they do really heartfelt numbers. Sometimes they do really hilariously comic takeoffs on some of these numbers. But it's a great opportunity for the general theater public to come and see some of their heroes, who we consider to be our celebrities, in a completely casual and different kind of way. And but the main thing is they put on a really good show. I mean, one of the things that's amazing about having performers to tap into for events like this is that they're really talented. And several people over the years have told us that Miscast is really a kind of a show-stopping night, and it's a unique evening out, and you really just get to see some. If you love musical theater, you'll be getting a treat that you can't duplicate anyplace else, and it's a lot of fun. So everybody should come.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I haven't been to it before.
Well, you know, the thing is, Alex, I never want people to feel like they're going to a Denver Actors Fund event out of obligation, and that it's like going to church. You know, we're going to leave some money in the basket. It's really been a priority for me from the beginning that when people walk out of a Denver Actors Fund event, that they had as much fun as they have had at the theater in a very long time.
Well, that's great. So Miscast is September 30th at the Aurora Fox Theater, and I think you can get tickets right on the Fox website.
Absolutely. You can get tickets online, or you can just buy at the door, just so that people know tickets are $25 if you buy them in advance. It's $30 if you buy them at the door.
All right, John. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to us about the Denver Actors Fund. You're an angel yourself for starting it and keeping it going. I know it's a lot of work and appreciated by a lot of the people who've gotten help from it.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me on to talk about it.
So, yeah, super cool organization and well worth supporting by going out to events that raise money for it. Okay, well, that's it for the pod for now. Tune in next week for more theater stuff, including my interview with A Doll's House and A Doll's House 2 directors Chris Coleman and Rose Riordan. Please tell your theater-loving friends about the Onstage Colorado website and podcast, and you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter on the site and also subscribe to the podcast, as they say, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the theater. So, yeah, super cool organization and well worth supporting by going out to events that raise money for it. Okay, well, that's it for the pod for now. Tune in next week for more theater stuff, including my interview with A Doll's House and A Doll's House 2 directors Chris Coleman and Rose Riordan. Please tell your theater-loving friends about the Onstage Colorado website and podcast, and you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter on the site and also subscribe to the podcast, as they say, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the theater.